Some men lift weights, others lift an entire industry. Today, we're stepping into the iron clinging world of two icons who didn't just train, they changed training forever: Arthur Jones and, of course, Mike Mentzer. These men believed the secret to building muscle wasn't spending hours in the gym, it was training harder, shorter, and smarter than anyone else. But while they shared the same core philosophy, their approaches and personalities couldn't have been more different. Arthur Jones was not your average gym rat. He was a pilot, adventurer, alligator wrangler, and an inventor. In the early 1970s, he introduced the world to high-intensity training, a revolutionary concept that flipped bodybuilding tradition on its head. Where others preached marathon sessions and endless sets, Jones pushed for one set to failure and then get the hell out of the gym. His mantra: train harder, train briefer, recover longer, short, intense, infrequent. And to prove it, he conducted the now famous Colorado experiment, where Casey Viator reportedly gained 63 pounds of lean mass in 28 days. Critics called it marketing hype, Jones called it proof. His Colorado experiment remains legendary, though controversial. Only 2 subjects were involved, and critics argued that those gains weren't entirely muscle alone, and suggested PEDs were involved. Still, it amplified the power of intensity. Arthur Jones founded Nautilus in the late 1960s after years of tinkering with ways to improve strength training efficiency. Dissatisfied with conventional barbells and machines that provided uneven resistance, Jones sought to design equipment that matched the body's natural strength curve, offering more resistance where muscles are strongest and less where they are weakest. His breakthrough came with the invention of the Nautilus cam, a distinctive spiral-shaped pulley inspired by the chambered Nautilus shell, which he admired for its perfect mathematical progressive curve. This cam allowed the resistance to vary smoothly throughout the range of motion, creating a more effective and biomechanically correct workout. Working out of his DeLand, Florida workshop, Jones hand-built prototypes, tested them relentlessly on himself and willing athletes, and gradually expanded his designs into a full line of strength machines. By the early 1970s, Nautilus equipment had revolutionized gyms worldwide, becoming synonymous with a new science-driven era of strength training. Arthur Jones often told colorful stories to illustrate his unconventional approach to strength training, and one of his favorites involved his pet gorilla, Mickey. In the 1950s, Jones kept and studied exotic animals, and he was fascinated by the sheer raw power of the gorilla. Strength that had come not from endless hours in a gym, but from short, intense bursts of effort in its natural environment. Observing Mickey's muscle development in effortless strength, Jones concluded that high levels of muscular size and power could be achieved without marathon training sessions, provided the effort was maximal. He noted that gorillas don't pump out set after set. They exert themselves intensively for brief moments, then rested extensively. This reinforced his belief that intensity, not volume, was the key to muscular development. Then came Mike Mentzer, a man as much a philosopher as a bodybuilder. He studied Ayn Rand's objectivism, quoting philosophical lines in the same breath as discussing bicep curls. Mike first learned about high-intensity training through Casey Viator's insane progress. Viator connected him with Jones, and that meeting lit a fire that would redefine Mentzer's training forever. Arthur was the only man in bodybuilding who could explain why something worked, not just tell you that it did. But Mike didn't just copy Jones, he amped it up. He created Heavy Duty, a stripped down, ultra intense, logic driven version of high intensity training. For Mentzer, the gym was not about more, it was about better. Why start with 5 sets and then cut back when it stops working? Start with 1 set. If that's not enough, add more. Logical, isn't it? The first time Mike walked into Jones's Nautilus headquarters, it was like stepping into the future. Machines he'd never seen, charts and data everywhere. Jones didn't greet him with small talk. He launched into a lecture about muscle physiology. Mike's first talk with Jones was a late night call that lasted 2 hours. Talking to Arthur was like trying to drink from a fire hose. For 6 months, Mike and his brother Ray worked with Jones, testing machines, training athletes, and absorbing everything. But both men had strong personalities. Mike wanted to push beyond Jones's methods, while Jones believed in sticking to the framework he had perfected. Eventually, they parted ways professionally, but their mutual respect endured. In a candid interview with Iron Man magazine, Mentzer identified a major shortcoming in Jones's high-intensity training philosophy. He said, "I knew there was a problem with Arthur's theory. It says exercise must be intense, brief, and infrequent. But what the hell is brief and infrequent? Those are two very broad terms that weren't given sufficient explanation." Jones merely reacted, arbitrarily said, "Train 3 times a week and do 12 to 20 sets for the whole body." That, too, resulted in gross overtraining. He explained that those arbitrary definitions of training volume and frequency often led to overtraining despite the intense focus. Reflecting on his objective philosophical learnings, Mentzer framed his system as a logically coherent refinement of high intensity training. He believed each individual had unique tolerance and recovery needs, and that training must adapt accordingly. Here's a breakdown of what Mentzer said were issues with Jones's version of high intensity training. Ambiguous terms, brief and infrequent, undefined. Mike Mentzer's heavy duty solution, experimentally precise volume, 2 to 4 sets, and frequency 4 to 14 days. General full body approach. Mentzer's solution, split routines targeting fewer muscle groups per session. Predominantly 2-failure approach. Mentzer's solution, intensified with advanced techniques beyond failure. Lacked individual tailoring. Mentzer's solution, Mentzer respected and adopted Jones's core insight that intensity is critical. However, Mentzer's heavy-duty system was his answer, a refined, logical, structured, and experimentally validated approach emphasizing minimum volume, maximum intensity, and ample recovery. During one of the darkest chapters of his life, after retiring from competition and grappling with deep depression, Mike Mentzer was briefly institutionalized for psychiatric care. In interviews reflecting on that turbulent period, Mentzer spoke candidly about his mental health struggles and the people who had shaped him. Among those were Arthur Jones, whom he still regarded as a towering intellect in the world of strength training. Mentzer described Jones as a genius, praising his revolutionary contributions to exercise science, and controversially likened him to some ways to a godlike figure. Not in a religious sense, but as someone whom seemed to possess near omniscient insight and the power to fundamentally change how people thought about training. While Mentzer would later critique aspects of Jones's methods, his reflections during that time revealed a complex mix of admiration, awe, and the lingering influence Jones had on his own philosophy and identity. So here is Arthur Jones' version high intensity. Full body workouts 3 times a week. 1 set per exercise taken to failure. Focus on Nautilus machines for controlled resistance. Recovery, a couple of days between sessions. Mike Mentzer's heavy duty. Split routines. Training each muscle group less frequently. 1 set to absolute failure, plus occasionally adding forced reps, negatives, rest pause. Often just 2 to 4 exercises per workout. Recovery, sometimes up to 10 days between sessions, but normally just 4 days. Jones's style was scientist meets showman. Mentzer's was philosopher meets warrior. Arthur Jones changed how people thought about training equipment and intensity. Without him, the concept of high intensity training might never have reached the mainstream. Mike Mentzer took the concept and made it a personal crusade, teaching thousands of athletes that logic, recovery, and effort mattered more than hours in the gym. Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia, credits heavy duty for shaping his championship physique. Today, echoes of Jones and Mentzer's ideas live on in countless programs that value quality over quantity. If you're not willing to train with 100% effort, you have no business training at all. Arthur Jones built the foundation. Mike Mentzer built the cathedral. One man brought science to the gym, the other brought philosophy to the squat rack. And together, they proved that sometimes less really is more. If you found this story interesting, smash the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, are you team high intensity or team heavy duty?